All right, the House Committee on Higher Ed will come to order. And the clerk will read a letter from the speaker.
Dear Mr. Clerk, I make the following changes to committees for the 102nd Legislature. Representative Tom Kuntz will be removed from Higher Education. Representative William Bruck will be added to Higher Education. Sincerely, Joe Tate, Speaker of the House.
Thank you. And next, we will take attendance.
Chair Glanville.
Here.
Representatives Reingens. Present. Colazar. Scott.
Present.
Burns.
Present.
Kofia.
Present.
Hill.
Here.
McDonald.
Present.
Pies.
Present.
Vanderwall.
Present.
Paquette.
Here.
Zorn.
Here.
Bruck.
Is Representative Bruck on Zoom?
DeSena.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Representative Reingens moves to approve the minutes of the March 1st meeting without objection, so ordered. And with that, I think we will turn it over to our presenter today. I'm pleased to have Dan Hurley, the CEO of Michigan Association of State Universities, here to share a presentation with us on the work that they're doing. So thank you, Mr. Hurley.
Good morning, Chair Glanville and members of the committee. It's great to be with you today. I think this is the second attempt. Ice storm knocked us out the first time around. Indeed great to be with you today. I want to help kind of paint a portrait of the 15 public universities of Michigan, some of the issues, trends, opportunities impacting the sector. I will say, I think over the arc of recent history, in a way, we're at striking a more optimistic tone, especially as it involves state investment in higher education. And as you're all, especially in your work, the fact that you're involved in so many aspects of state policy when it comes to the issue of opportunity and leveraging the state's higher education institutions, a lot of opportunity so long as we make the right decisions. Just a bit, I know a lot of you are new, especially this committee. It's been about 20 years since we've had one. I've been the CEO of this association for 8 years. This is my 25th year working directly on behalf of public universities. That's my second stint at this association. I've worked at the institutional, state, and national level, and I'm a proud graduate of 4 of our public colleges and universities in the state. So the organization that I represent has been around since 1952. It was started as the President's Council. It was that way up until about 8 years ago. We changed the name to its current name, which is more symbolic of what we all do, sector-wide collaboration. Our board are the 13 presidents of the universities and the 2 chancellors, U of M, Flint, and Dearborn. And we have an extensive committee structure. And one of the themes here in Michigan is we are decentralized. And so unlike the Ohio Department of Higher Education, the University of Wisconsin system, Minnesota state system, our bureaucracy is myself, Bob, and Robin is back at the office. So Bob's middle management, and that's it. So we're pretty efficient here in Michigan. And we serve as the coordinating board. We are decentralized, but the universities most definitely coordinate across a variety of issues, trying to maximize the impact that their missions have on their regions and the state as a whole. These are the very talented, diverse, wise presidents and chancellors of the state universities of Michigan. Themes, again, talent, diversity, and newness. A full 1/3 of our board have started their roles as the institutional CEOs in just the past 7 months. So a lot of retirements and other transitions, and hopefully in the weeks and months ahead, you'll get to know these institutional leaders. We have extensive standing committee structure. We convene a lot of our VP and director groups on a regular basis. And so if we can ever be a conduit on campus issues to inform your work, whether it's higher ed related or not, please know that They represent rich resources, assets in terms of certainly knowledge of a lot of issues. The most involved group, especially in serving as the liaisons to the state legislature and all the state government, are our State Relations Officers Committee, many who are in the room with us now. So we're blessed with 15 public universities. We do have a global, national reputation for academic excellence. I try to be unbiased, but I spent close to a decade in DC, and I can tell you, even just hanging out in that forum, our schools punch above our weight when it comes to quality of instruction, R&D, tech transfer, and overall outcomes. And so as a state, incredibly important assets and something that we should all be proud of. Most recent year, we have data for 71,000 degrees granted, and we'll talk about kind of the value add of those degrees. Makes a huge impact. Fall enrollment, over 250,000 students, but as you all know, that number has been declining. I'll share a couple words on that. And then we often look at our college and universities as workforce. Yes, they are workforce development engines, but they are also engines of research and development, tech transfer, new company startups, et cetera. 2021, $2.76 billion worth of research and development. And those are dollars often coming from out of state being spent here and generating a lot of economic activity. I think it's 96% of those dollars are generated by the university research corridor universities, U of M, Michigan State, and Wayne State. Those three schools are three public research one universities, according to the Carnegie classification system. We are the only state in the nation with three public R1s. Again, a huge point of pride. So one of the most fundamental differences in our ecosystem among our public universities in Michigan is that they are autonomous. The framers of our Constitution wanted to provide full oversight discretion to the governing boards overseeing those universities. And they have the full control of all expenditures, key policy issues like enrollment, admissions, tuition, strategic plans, et cetera. And so as a result, Michigan, I do believe, has the most market-responsive set of institutions in this country. If an institution wants to do something, build something, create a new academic program, they can do it a lot more swiftly than their sister institutions out of state. And our governing boards largely, well, for the three non-research universities, R1s, they are gubernatorially appointed, 8-member boards, typically staggered in two appointees every couple of years. And then for Wayne, Michigan State, U of M, they, of course, are elected via statewide elections. So one key theme, and I think Michigan is a standout in this regard, is that at this moment, of course, there always has been a return on investment in earning a college degree. Not every state right now in this country can say that they have huge demand for four-year degree workers. We absolutely can make that argument here. The Department, or the Bureau of Labor Market Information and DTMB, they do a study, I think it's every 3 years, looking at about an 8-year forecast of the top 50 high-wage, high-demand jobs. It's key to mention both of those, high-wage and high-demand. 37 of those 50 occupations through 2030 minimum require a 4-year degree. And so very strong demand. And then this is probably one of the most common charts, and whether it's before policymakers or prospective freshmen entering college or maybe even high school, is looking at the job security, the earnings, the social mobility, the occupational mobility that comes with earning a post-secondary degree or credential. Clearly, the more one learns, the more one earns, and these data bear that out. It holds true at the individual level, at the community level, and the state level. What I don't have is a chart that shows the correlation between per capita earnings across all the states and educational attainment. Very strong correlation. There has been, always will be, questioning, is earning a four-year degree worth it? And that question should persist. And there's certainly a state role in that, in the answer to that question. This is another chart that shows, though, what has happened with earnings of those with a BA degree versus a high school degree. And since 1990, there has been, I'd say, a modest increase in earnings, inflation adjusted, with those with a four-year degree, about 7% increase over that time frame. But perhaps more interesting and more alarming, for sure, is what has happened with median wages for those with a high school diploma. It's actually gone in reverse. It's been declining to the tune of about 15% over that same time frame. And if you look at that green box there, looking at 2021 data, a 42% difference in terms of the gap in earnings there. And so the earnings premium between a high school diploma and a four-year degree continues to grow, and that's a key takeaway. So there's been a lot of talk, for good reason, Michigan's attainment goal. Sarah Zerpicki, director of the Office of 60 by 30, spoke to this last week. We were one of the last states in the nation to actually set in policy, adopted by the legislature, an attainment goal, 60% by 2030. So the good news is, as Sarah had pointed out, we actually gained a modest 1.5% between 2019 and 2021. But look at that bottom figure there. In that same 2-year span, we dropped 5 states in our national ranking in terms of educational attainment. That is really alarming. A talent pipeline is the most important currency, I think, to a state economy. We're making progress, but we are falling behind. Other states are passing us by in order to, and there's a lot of good things going on right now, but we really need to, probably the first and foremost, is increase college affordability to be the linchpin to increase student enrollment. So perhaps the most key message that I've been carrying for the last 20-some years here has been the story of higher education investment in Michigan. And it's a pretty sad story up until the current fiscal year. And many, many numbers bear this out. You can see this on the screen here. We've had about $1 billion cut in state funding since the beginning of the century, and then we're still about 19% compared to where we were post-Great Recession. And that bottom figure, down 37% when you look at state funding on a per-student basis. That would never, ever happen in K-12 education. Looking at the ROI, the value add of a four-year degree, it shouldn't be happening in higher ed. So we need to reverse that. So what has happened is there's been a state-to-student cost shift in who pays for a public university education. You see here a basic pie chart, 1979, the state paid about 70% of all general fund revenues to our public universities. Students and families paid 30%. You go up to FY22, and it's been more than flipped. The students now pay more than 3/4 of operating the university through their tuition and federal grants. Nationally, for context, that right pie chart, add up all states, all of higher education, it's about 53% of money revenue comes through state funding, the rest by students and families. It shows you just how out of whack Michigan is in that equation. State financial aid, similar sad story. 66% cut since 2002 up until 2022. When you take out federal TANF dollars, we were dead last in state financial aid, again, up until the current year. About a month ago, 6 weeks ago or so, the Nonpartisan Citizens Research Council issued a report. They worked on it for about a year, looking at why is tuition at a Michigan public university quite high, among the highest in the country when you look at the published prices. and did all the data analysis and came up with a very logical, rational conclusion that it has been, the primary lever has been state disinvestment. And in order to turn that around, there needs to be greater state investment. So that's the sad part. Now I turn to the more optimistic tone. And the graphic on the screen is too small to read. You have this one-page flyer in your folders. But in the current year budget, now contains a new flagship Michigan Achievement Scholarship. This was touched on last week, and it is the biggest thing to happen in this state, again, at least in a quarter century. A significant percentage of the graduating class of 2023 is going to be eligible for this award, up to $5,500 for those attending a public university for up to 5 years. And many others, 93% plus for those attending a community college, almost 80% of those heading off to enroll at an independent college. Of note, those last two bullet points, we hear a lot about student debt. About 55% of our undergrads take out a loan. And for those who do, it's about $7,000 a year. Well, knock $5,500 off that, it is a huge reduction in student debt. And that's good for students, and it's good for our economy. So when our students enter an occupation, make some good income when they graduate, instead of sending off dollars to the Department of Education in DC, they are now going to be spending it on consumer goods and services in Michigan and generating a lot of economic activity. There is also a significant new scholarship for teachers, which should go a long way to helping out our teacher pipeline issue, which is a real critical issue. Want to segue as I wind down here. I want to note a couple of the key challenges that we have that you all, I think, are aware of, are working to address, and we want to be partners in that. And it's a key theme, again, over the 25 years I've been working in and with Michigan higher ed leaders and policymakers. One is a demographic challenge. It's not unique to Michigan. It's really a Northeast and Midwest U.S. phenomenon, a migration, A, away from the state, and B, just a diminishing high school pipeline. And so that is a challenge for us. But we cannot let demographics be our destiny. So the universities are doing a lot to try to turn that tide around in terms of reaching out to a lot of populations that have not traditionally participated in higher education, and those who do enroll, trying to change those achievement gaps. And then this right here, I had to pop this in here. There was, you might have seen it last Thursday or Friday, the Detroit Regional Chamber of Commerce put out its annual poll, and they looked at consumer sentiment around the economy. Very interesting, very sour, despite a lot of positive economic indicators. Ask them about the whole transition to EVs, not really with it, although the entire global and certainly Michigan manufacturers are making that transition. And then third theme was their perceived importance of earning a college degree, and just a huge disconnect. And I remember saying the same thing 20 years ago when we thought we were making a change, strong change from a manufacturing economy to a more of a knowledge economy. That seems to be a little bit in flux with current investments and policies in recent weeks and months. But you look here, only 27% of voters think that a college degree is very important, and 70% think that a high school diploma is sufficient to be successful. So that's public sentiment, a poll of 600 people. But look at the data I just shared with you 5 minutes ago. There's a disconnect there. Reality, 80% of all jobs paying at the 75th percentile, the median average, 64,000, are held with people with a bachelor's degree or higher. Only 5% are held by those with an associate degree or apprenticeship. I mean, that is a huge disconnect. The fact is, you follow the numbers, you are not going to have a middle-class lifestyle if you don't earn some type of post-secondary degree or credential, especially a BA or above. So I wanted to point those two issues out. And to wind down, among the things that the public universities are doing are certainly trying to become a lot more strategic on their outreach, their marketing. All of the universities have made progress on increasing degree retention, our student retention and degree completion in recent years. They're now spending over $1 billion in institutional financial aid to really reduce the or the cost of college. And there's a stat there that on average, students attending a public university pay 40% of the published cost of, full cost of attendance. So a lot of financial aid when you add in federal, state, and institutional grants. And a lot of efforts to re-enroll stopped-out students, working adults. We are a net in-migration state as it involves students. We're an importer, and we're a top 10 state in international students. So you add all that up, a lot of levers that we can pull to turn around enrollment. And I think the real lever is going to be the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. And we're also, as I mentioned, creating a lot of new market-responsive programs, implementing efficiencies, cost savings, and we have a whole host of partners. And I will say this, again, we are decentralized, but I think we're at an inflection point in the last couple of years. My partners at the community colleges, the independent colleges, terrific people. We are getting it done in terms of collaboration, outcomes, achievements that are benefiting students, our institutions, our economy, and we're doing it in an independent, autonomous environment. These are our priorities. We've had them for the last several years: increased investment in operating support, student aid, and capital outlay and deferred maintenance. So with that, our future is in college, and I'm happy to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hurley. I don't know, okay, thank you. I have a couple questions of my own, and I see we have a few folks with questions, so I'll just lead with a couple things here so that others can get in as well. One thing I wanted to ask about was the data you showed here at the end, the perceptions, the public perception piece. I'm wondering if we can get some crosstabs on that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
I'll forward it on. And yeah, to their credit, the Detroit Regional Chamber sent out an email, and it's you click through, and it's, be careful before you hit the print button. I think it's 79 pages.
Oh, okay.
And it's all in there. But
We won't all print it.
yeah,
We'll save some resources.
but yeah, some really, really good data in there.
Yeah,
I'll
that- I
forward
think-
it on.
Fantastic, thanks for that. And then I'm sure many of you are aware, although we have a lot of exciting things going on here at the Capitol today, I believe it's also an adult ed visit day, or legislative day for adult ed, is that what it is? And so I just wanted to ask, I had the opportunity to meet with a couple of groups already this morning, and one thing that I'm wondering about as we talk about the completion rates, the facts, I'm wondering what our universities are doing to partner with, and you had them listed in here, the non-degree completers, working adults, stepped-out students. So I'm wondering what the relationship is between our universities and that adult ed space, potentially GED, ABE, those kinds of programs, so that we're moving people up into those post-secondary options, even as adults. Is there any kind of partnerships or
Yeah,
anything going
it's
on there?
interesting. There's really, I view that as a little bit of a two populations. And when it comes to sort of like GED completion, I think that's more in the realm of ISDs,
Yeah.
maybe working a little bit more with community colleges. I don't know if the public universities work too much in that space. But I will say, a key theme is Michigan, for whatever reason, it might be our manufacturing economy, but we are, we have a very high proportion nationally of adults 25 and older with some college credit, but who haven't earned a degree. We know that all of the universities are doing outreach to try to bring these individuals back. We think the Michigan Reconnect program is probably very helpful for those earning a two-year degree, and maybe eventually an expansion of that to four-year degree programs. And so there's a lot of outreach, and one of the initiatives that our association has actually been working on is partnering with some entities in an effort to really strategically reach out to former students who have stopped out, identify are they interested in earning a credential, and if so, finding out what their barriers are, working with them intensively to get them re-enrolled, staying with them through to degree completion.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'd like to follow up with you at some point, maybe. I'm not convinced that ISDs are the right place for adult education. I don't know what the stigma is there for adults returning to a K-12 setting.
Yeah.
And given that, we're starting to do more and more of that middle college, early college piece where universities are partnering down into, our high schools, maybe there's we can start thinking about what that looks like for adults who need to complete as well. So just a thought there. But I will, Minority Vice Chair Vanderwall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here. Just a couple quick questions. As you read down in the one paragraph, when it comes to funding, and you state that our community colleges are about 111%. Our universities, of course, are 2/3 the national average. Where do we sit with tuition rates for our state folks that are going into higher education? Where do we compare to other states?
So I couldn't speak to where the community colleges are at. For the public universities, we're certainly a top 10 state, maybe even a top 3 state in terms of the published cost of attendance. And that's, that's not good. That's not a good stat. It's a fact. And the fact is that that's been that way because of the issue of state disinvestment. Where we do make up for it, credit to the universities, is funneling, again, $1 billion plus in institutional revenues back into need-based financial aid. And they sort of had to do that when the state not only disinvested on the operating support side, but pulled out on the financial aid front as well. And they had to do that. If they didn't do that, we would have been the most expensive state in tuition. So hopefully that issue, especially with the Michigan Achievement Scholarship and several of the other proposals and at least the executive recommendation, if those get sustained, I think we're going to make some very significant progress on that front in terms of tuition prices compared to our peers across the country at the 4-year level.
Yeah, if you could get me some information on that, especially of our Midwestern universities and where we compare. Yeah. Next question would be, where do we sit on out-of-state tuition, and what folks that come into our great states universities, where do we sit?
I don't have that data as well. I would say it's mostly an issue with not just the Research One flagships. Interestingly, because of our kind of demographic challenges, we do need to import more, and many of our regional universities have actually dropped out-of-state tuition prices altogether. And that's been a phenomenon throughout the Northeast, all of the Midwest over the last few years. We are competing, and those students who come in from out of state, they bring with them a whole lot of spending, at the university, in the community, and hopefully we can retain them afterwards. And so it probably is a question looking at, 4 or 5 of our most, academically selective schools and comparing those with their sister institutions out of state. And we can look at that as well and get that data to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Sure.
Thank you for being here.
Representative Rangans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again for being here. And I noticed that your legislative priorities all relate to appropriations, and we are a policy committee. So I'm curious if you happen to have any ideas or thoughts or things for us to look at that are policies and not just appropriations.
Yeah, fine question. So often things have to do with resources. So one issue, and I don't know if it's in the purview of this committee or K-12, but I think that there is a very significant policy window of opportunity right now as it involves FAFSA completion, the free application for federal student aid. You have to complete that in order to be eligible for the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. There's about 8 states that have passed FAFSA completion is a high school graduation requirement. Indiana General Assembly is debating it today in one of their committees. They will be probably the 9th state. The states, and it's about split down the middle, red or blue, some in the Midwest, some in the South, they have gone, Louisiana was the first state, they went from pretty much dead last to first in a space of a year in terms of the percentage of high school students that completed a FAFSA. All of the states, they have a opt-out waiver. Under various circumstances, the parents or the students themselves can say, I don't want to complete it, but nevertheless, it has proven to move the dial on FAFSA completion and subsequently enrollment. And so that is one area where I think the higher education community is very much united around this. That bill was introduced 1 or 2 sessions ago. We'd like to see it maybe reintroduced this session. And I know there's a group called the Institute for College Access and Success. They just put out a paper last week on this issue, and we can make sure you have that in your hands and see if there's some energy around that issue. That would be one, and then I think possibly, again, often you think about resources, but what might be some areas to amplify the amplify best practice adoption in Michigan, and what are those best practices? And we have a lot of innovative institutions, innovative leaders, and clearly we need that in order to increase enrollment, boost retention, boost degree completion, and then partnering with one thing that I'm often here in Lansing, the folks that represent the leadership at our universities, they can go at depth in terms of what they're doing, partnering with K-12, early college, middle college, do enrollment, but then also partnering with workforce, with employers around the talent pipeline, and some really exciting things happening there that there might be some, again, opportunity to amplify and help replicate those efforts.
Does that answer your questions? Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I know I've talked with you and others about this FAFSA completion piece. So glad to, hope we can continue to find a solution for that or some strategies that'll work well. Also wondering, when you talk about the best practices, you listed your committees. Would your committees be a good place to start? Maybe gathering some of that? Would you be a good warehouse, or do you do that kind of work?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would work, through our group here, and we would,
I guess I'm wondering, have you started to collect some of those best practices, or is that something we need to begin the work on, or would TCAS have that?
we could collect them for you, but we would just need, I'm sure they have them at their hands, but, we would want a better idea of specifically
Specific
which
requests.
ones, and
Okay.
then we could kind of direct traffic in terms of who are the best institutional contacts to derive those best practices, yeah.
All right, thank you. We have a few more. Representative Burns.
There's been a challenge in terms of state disinvestment over the years. On the flip side of that, I'm also interested in what you would consider best practices for universities kind of managing their funds, particularly for our larger, wealthier institutions. Oftentimes we see what I would call administrative bloat. We have a lot of upper-level administrators making well into the 6 figures. Some get a car allowance. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have our students, who everyone is supposed to be there in service of, who are taking on massive amounts of student debt, as you referenced earlier. And we have lecturers who are struggling to get by. And that is a really bitter pill for folks to swallow. And I say that as a former staffer in one of these large, wealthy institutions. And so I'm curious as to how you would frame best practices for our institutions to kind of manage and prioritize their funds.
Sure. Well, there certainly has been, and it's more kind of a key message when, in economic downturns, but the universities have, they cut dramatically during the Great Recession, trying to protect the academic core, funneling as many dollars as they can into the classroom, and really using kind of the back of the house enterprise to do their efficiencies and cuts. So that continues to happen. There's a lot of group purchasing going on. On the administrative bloat, I can't rattle off facts and figures in terms of what has happened, but I do know that ratio, when you look at, for example, federal data, that often includes a lot of student support staff that are not, VP levels. It's counselors. Student mental health has been just a tremendous issue, and it's only being more challenged in recent, frankly, weeks in this state. And so a lot of that, administrators, they're not instructors in the classroom, but when you look at the retention, the increases in retention among the 15 universities, a lot of that goes to those academic advisors, other types of supports and resources out there that are not directly linked to the classroom. And so I think that actually has to do, it's how it's counted, that it makes that equation kind of go, be misrepresented a little bit.
Anything further?
I mean, I would just add, I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, my sister is a mental health professional at a university, and I come from, one of those roles that was not in the classroom that you mentioned. I think my concern is just more about, our major universities, and I think all of them really talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that equity piece is often lacking when you see, and this is not an indictment of you personally, this is a general statement, so I just want to be clear. I think you often see that equity piece lacking just in terms of how our universities administer their funds and what they prioritize internally. So I think that's a real challenge and something that I definitely have a keen eye on. So I appreciate your response and your comments on that. And just something that as a member of this committee and a former, higher ed staffer, something that I'm always really aware of. So I appreciate your response. Thank you.
Thank you. And turning to Representative Bruck, who's online with us.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hurley, for the presentation. I am remote. I'm down in Virginia, so I do appreciate the opportunity to zoom in. Just to give a little background, I have a college degree as well as a master's in business. I'm also trades. I went through the trades and apprenticeship and became a lineman in 2000. And also I've had the privilege of being a trustee at Monroe County Community College for the previous 6 years. And I'm also a business owner. So there's a lot of different perspectives I'm coming to you at this question. But you had mentioned one particular statement when you're presenting. You said we will not let, I think it was demographics determine our destiny. And I know we dealt with this at the community college level with the falling enrollment because there is a falling graduation rate across the state. And I guess my question is, as a business owner, we have to morph and we have to change. Sometimes we have to consolidate. Trust me, the last 3 years, we have consolidated a lot with the employment issues. But my question is, how are you going to get, or where do you potentially see future colleges getting their students from? And then my second part of the question is on the skilled trade. I noticed during your presentation, you didn't address skilled trades. I know, for the most part, at the major universities, they're not focusing on the skilled trade and maybe the STEM, but at the community college level, that's one of our core new recruiting tools, is utilizing skilled trades to get people involved in higher education. So I would like to see how that compares, because it's not just college degree versus, GED or diploma. There is that skilled trade apprenticeship or training in there too. So if you could just touch on that. I do, again, appreciate the presentation, sir.
Sure. Well, thank you for that, and welcome to this committee. There's a lot of, in this country, I think too much of a bifurcation between the skilled trades and whatever comes after that. We have 15 very diverse institutions. Some of them don't engage directly with the skilled trades very much, others do. Lake Superior State University, Northern Michigan University, they have huge programs there to help out. We're also on the flip side, not saying everyone needs a 4-year degree. So we partner with employers, with high schools, with 2-year schools, and I think, doing everything we can to help build out the skilled trades programs. And so it's not that we're not skilled trades, it's that there's a lot of different actors, stakeholders, public and independent in the state that are working on that. And as it involves the demographics, and really what I mean by that again is the diminishing youth population in our state. And yes, one of the themes that comes up is consolidations, closures, et cetera. We had one of our smaller independent colleges unfortunately announced their closure in the UP last week. It's always sad to see. It's happening elsewhere around the country. But I think that our universities, are so important to the state, especially at the regional level, that we need to do everything we can to make sure that we turn around enrollment and grow that enrollment. And I think any society that says we're just going to deal with becoming smaller and smaller, civically, socially, economically, I don't think that is particularly positive or helpful or proactive. I think we need to do everything we can to grow our population. With that, good things will happen. And as I had mentioned, probably the key levers, one is increase post-secondary enrollment. It's the hardest one to turn, but with all the new financial aid resources, especially with this achievement scholarship, we might actually get it done. And other levers, increasing retention. If we can hold on to the students that actually enroll, that's a big difference. Increasing degree completion, importing more students from out of state, importing more international students. So there's a lot of opportunities there to offset this narrowing at the high school pipeline level.
Does that answer?
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We have a couple more, but I just want to kind of tag on that while we're on this topic. As we are losing, we've lost one college this year. I'm assuming in other places there might be programs that are being sunsetting. Maybe that's a shift because we're shifting to different types of workforce, or maybe because of low enrollments. But I'm wondering what's being done to help those students. You talk about persistence and completion rates. How do we keep those students who know that their program is coming to an end or something? Are there some strategies and best practices to help folks continue and continue to be motivated to finish, or to support them as the resources are dwindling?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a kind of a standard answer to that, I don't know if Robert Lefebvre here from the Independent College Association, he's probably more privy, for example, the case illustration being Finlandia University. And, the media accounts that I saw, they reached out to 3 or 4 institutions, 4-year partners. I'm going to probably say Michigan Tech, Northern Michigan University, possibly Lake Superior State University, and I think another 1 or 2 independent colleges, 4-year institutions to help those students graduate with a credential and in a meaningful time frame. So I do know that we at least have had one college of our universities reach out to us and looking to build out a 4-year degree program in the very near term, kind of fast track it to help one of the more higher enrollment programs at Finlandia. So, again, this is happening a little bit too much in this country. Again, it's mostly a demographic challenge, especially with some of the smaller, less selective private liberal arts colleges. And I think it's a case-by-case scenario where they turn first probably quietly and then a bit more publicly when they want to actually inform students of what's happening with what their alternatives are. And I think that the 4-year institutions do a good job holding hands and helping these students get through to degree completion.
All right, thanks. And we will have the independent colleges in
Right.
soon. I think it's next week. So, all right, thank you. Representative Colasar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's going to be focused really on the nursing field, because as we know, we don't have enough nurses in Michigan. I know a lot of community colleges and state universities have entered into partnerships. I am really interested in hearing about the enrollment in those partnerships and if you think that they are progressing toward achieving our goal of getting more nurses into the field.
So that was one of the, a case illustration, perhaps, of the last year or two in terms of collaboration among the 3 sectors, and a special tip of the hat to the community colleges group, and of course lawmakers for helping fund this BSN completion partnership. Those are just getting underway. I think there's been only 2 or 3 public announcements in terms of a public or private 4-year school bringing their program, BSN program, completion program, to a community college campus. A key distinction, though, that effort will increase the quality of our nursing workforce. We will have more nurses qualified credentials with a bachelor's degree in nursing as opposed to an associate degree. It is not necessarily going to increase the number of nurses. Where it might to a degree is knowing if you're a young man or woman who wants to get a BSN, be a nurse, but lives in a more rural part of the state that doesn't have a four-year institution in close proximity, knowing that you can do that. That might incentivize more individuals to go into the nursing profession. And then again, with the scholarship opportunities that are out there now, that may increase those entering in the nursing workforce as well. And as is the case with teachers, the demand has always been high and continues to be high. With COVID and other factors, I don't know what the latest numbers are, but interestingly, as of about 2 or 3 years ago, the forecast for Michigan by 2030 was that we were actually going to have a surplus of like 6,000 or 8,000 nurses. That equation might have changed in the last 2 or 3 with different dynamics out there. So I think we're all holding hands to try to increase the number of nurses, but we will most definitely have some outcomes numerical for you in another year or two when we get these programs built out that will show that we're increasing the quality of our nursing workforce by having more of those credentialed with a BSN. If that's helpful.
Representative Kofia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hurley, for being here and presenting today. I wanted to follow up. It's a little bit from our Vice Chair's questions earlier, Minority Vice Chair Vanderwalls, but I was looking at the slide about the bachelor degree median earnings of as of 2021 of $52,000 a year. I appreciate all the hard numbers that you've included in this presentation, but it made me want to ask two questions. One, what is the median college tuition for a four-year university? I didn't see that in the presentation for in-state and out-of-state tuition. And then the follow-up is, what is the college, the student loan interest rate that students are facing? Because we want to get them to that middle class wage, but I'm thinking about how long it takes them after they've paid their in or out-of-state tuition and paying down those loans before they actually achieve that full $52,000 a year of take home.
Yeah. I don't follow the I don't know the interest rates off the top of my head. I can get back to you on that.
The interest rates?
Yeah, the loan, the student loan interest rates, if that's what you're talking about.
I am talking about, what they're charged for interest rates on the student loans.
I don't follow that too closely, so I could see where we're at on that currently and what the trend is. Same with the out-of-state tuition, and because again, there's a number of schools that just don't even charge it anymore. It's more of the larger, more selective institutions that still charge it. That's a national phenomenon. And then I can't put it down to the dollar amount, but our tuition, it's all we have a annual tuition report going back 20 years. We just published it probably a month or so ago. It's right on our website, masu.org. But tuition ranges from approximately $10,000 to probably around $16,000 among the 15 universities annually, undergraduate, in-state. So that's going to vary a little bit. But I said the new Michigan Achievement Scholarship, just that scholarship alone should knock off 1/3 to 1/2 of that tuition. And you factor in Pell Grants and other opportunities out there. And I do want to, I don't know if I didn't say it at the outset, but we are, the current fiscal year, and hopefully moving forward, we'll see a lot of momentum here in the next many weeks and months as it involves the next year budget. We're at the most, optimistic moment we've been at in a long time, and a lot of it is because of that state investment. So the numbers that you're speaking to are going to hopefully, trend in a positive direction as long as we sustain this turnaround in state investment.
Sure. One follow-up, if I may. I just paid off my student loans. Very excited to have done that decade plus after I went through school. But I would suggest that when we are thinking about getting folks with a bachelor's degree to a middle-class income, that the interest rate and the median in-state tuition be factored in, because it really does have implications for how long it will take, how many years or decades before they reach that.
Yeah.
And that incentivizes them to stay in our state if they can actually do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Following up on that, I think you might have included something along those lines. I saw, and I don't remember the page, but where you talked about the average, was it 7,000? Is the
Yeah, debt,
average
yeah.
loan
About-
amount
yeah.
that students take out? Is that, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, can you remind me what that
Yeah,
number
so
was?
only, I don't know if I can emphasize only, but about 55% of undergraduates at the state's public universities take out a loan. The others don't. They pay for it. They're either fully covered through, scholarships and grants, or they've saved up money in some other fashion. But of those 55% that take out loans, the average loan amount is about $7,000 a year. The average graduate of a public university in Michigan who has debt will have about $30,000 in debt when they graduate.
Okay.
And that equation is going to fundamentally change with the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, given that about 3/4 of students entering a public university will be eligible for that scholarship.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding, the current average is 30,000, and then using the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, which is kicking in this year, we should see a dramatic. We'll have to
Huge.
wait at least a year to see the shifts in that. Okay, all right, I think that goes along a little bit with that. Rep. Hill? Oh, okay, Representative Hill.
Thank you. That was, I was in a conversation this morning at a breakfast where that point was raised, that as this Michigan Achievement Scholarship is rolling out, there will be that potential of, what is my math here, $22,000. It's basically the state's offering $22,000 over the presuming a 4-year degree. My question is then, it usually takes, my understanding is that now it takes a lot of folks 6 years to finish. Does the scholarship continue, or is it proportional? And how, as we, so many folks, and especially the returning folks, need that more time, 4 years is to step out of everything is unrealistic, and how are we managing that with with that program?
The Michigan Achievement Scholarship is eligible for those attending a public university, $5,500 a year for up to 5 years. So it's a happy medium. The federal definition of graduation is 6 years, but it should cover the vast majority of it. One thing I do want to note, again, it's tied a little bit to dollars, but in the FY24 executive recommendation is a $15 million line item for FAFSA completion promotion. One thing not included in the original seed monies for this program was any marketing dollars. And alarmingly, as of 2 days ago, we're 4% down year over year to date on FAFSA completion, despite having this huge new scholarship program, and despite the fact that that figure has already been hit for 4 years in a row because of COVID. And so the state, you all have invested the dollars, but the word is just not getting out there enough. And so we really need to, and there's some efforts underway, credit to the Michigan College Access Network for working with institutions and the state's philanthropic community, and I think there'll be a significant statewide marketing campaign launched here literally in the days ahead, an intensive one, about 90 days long, but we need some type of state support to just get the word out on that scholarship, FAFSA completion, and the value of earning a post-secondary degree or credential.
All right, well, thank you so much. This has been a very valuable conversation, and I'm excited to hear that we are on the cusp of what sounds like some really significant movement in some of the areas that you identified. So hopefully, what I heard you just say was we should all go home in our coffee hours and talk about the Michigan Achievement Scholarship.
Yes.
So, or March's Reading Month, make sure we're mentioning that as we walk out the door. So thank you all. I think that concludes our list. Is there anybody else with questions this morning? All right, so I think that concludes our work for this morning. Thank you all. And with that, committee will stand adjourned.